The morning I discovered Margaret's $75,000 Lexus blocking my disabled veteran uncle's medical transport van, I realized that gleaming silver sedan was about to vanish permanently. The ironic part? She would practically demand I remove it herself. Picture this scenario. It's 6:15 a.m. My uncle's specialized wheelchair transport is honking repeatedly. He's about to miss his crucial kidney treatment. And there's Margaret, leisurely enjoying her almond milk cappuccino by her bay window, seemingly amused by our desperate situation. That smugness would cost her dearly. Her vehicle, her property, her liberty, and you won't believe her husband's reaction when the truth surfaced. What would you do if your homeowner association president transformed your existence into pure misery? Share your worst HOA horror stories below. I'm gathering testimonies for my attorney. Where are you viewing from? California? New York? If you're dealing with an HOA, you must understand the 3 statutes I employed to legally demolish Margaret completely. Trust me, after 52 blocked driveways, vengeance served at freezing temperatures tastes sweeter than you could imagine. Let me describe how this suburban conflict began. Margaret Sullivan Blackwood didn't accidentally enter my world. She targeted it with the precision of a guided missile aimed at destroying peace. I'm David Romano, 44, a masonry contractor who made the fateful error of inheriting my grandmother's property in Oakwood Heights development. Nonna Maria was legendary. In 1991, she battled the HOA establishment with the intensity of 1,000 Italian grandmothers calling it sanctioned theft by bureaucratic dictators. Lord, I miss that woman's fierce wisdom. 4 months ago, I relocated with my expectant wife, Sarah, 9 months pregnant yet still instructing 5th grade because educators are tougher than Marine commandos. Also with us was my uncle Vincent, a Desert Storm veteran confined to a wheelchair since a workplace incident aggravated old combat injuries. This man constructed half of Denver with his own hands before his back failed, and all he required was a basic ramp to see his great-nieces. Enter Margaret Sullivan Blackwood, the personification of an HOA citation. Technically within regulations, but morally bankrupt. 3 days after our move-in, I remember precisely because diesel exhaust from the relocation truck still permeated everything. This 5-foot hurricane of suburban rage clicked across my driveway in $900 stilettos, trailing enough cologne to breach international treaties. That construction requires design committee authorization, she declared, gesturing her French manicured finger at Uncle Vince's temporary accessibility ramp like it was evidence of wrongdoing. Her tablet cover coordinated with her salmon blazer, which matched her Lexus, which matched her essence, cold, silver, and overpriced. My uncle needs this accessibility ramp, I explained, observing her tap, tap, tap that screen like she was initiating missile launches. The review board convenes in 7 to 9 weeks, she smiled. The type of smile that intimidates predators. I'm confident he can adapt until then. That evening, Uncle Vince attempted the stairs and nearly fractured his skull when his strength gave out. So at 7:30 a.m., I reconstructed that ramp with every power tool screaming. By 7:45, a $450 penalty appeared on my doorway, the document still hot from her printer, faintly scented with arrogance and toner cartridge. But here's what I hadn't yet discovered about Margaret. She wasn't merely some bored housewife playing dictator. This woman was a property agent who'd transformed our HOA into her personal client acquisition system. Her silver Lexus GX460 with its Rules for You vanity plate, serving as mobile marketing for her authority. She resided in the fortress directly opposite me, a 7,000 square foot monument to poor taste with perfect surveillance angles to monitor my every code violation. Her spouse, Thomas, owned Blackwood Masonry, my primary competitor, though I wouldn't piece together those connections until she'd already cost me $45,000 in lost projects. The woman operated a refined system perfected over 9 years of presidential intimidation. Apply precise pressure to break you without leaving evidence. Enforce regulations selectively like a marksman choosing targets. Document everything in quadruplicate while violating postal regulations herself. She believed herself invulnerable, shielded by parliamentary procedure, and her wine circle board members, who voted unanimously because she controlled their property, valuations like a suburban puppet master. What Margaret failed to realize was that she'd declared war on the nephew of Maria Romano, the woman who once recalled a mayor for attempting to classify her herb garden as commercial farming. I'd inherited more than Nonna's weathered ranch house. I'd inherited her Sicilian fury, her filing cabinet full of neighborhood secrets, and her complete intolerance for bullies in any form, especially those wearing salmon blazers and excessive white shoulders perfume. Game on, Margaret. You just didn't realize you'd already been defeated. 3 weeks later, Margaret declared war on my livelihood with a smile more toxic than arsenic. I was loading my F-350 at sunrise when she materialized beside me like evil incarnate in beige. Polyester, tablet clutched like a weapon of neighborhood destruction. David, she cooed, her voice dripping artificial sympathy. We must address your commercial vehicle situation. The way she pronounced commercial made it sound like toxic waste. According to the emergency HOA session conducted while I was pouring foundation across town, curious how emergencies always occur during my absence, all commercial vehicles now required concealment from street visibility within 45 days, daily penalties. $125. My work truck, the vehicle supporting my family and mortgage payments, was apparently a visual terrorist assaulting property values. I'm certain you can accommodate it in your garage, she suggested, knowing perfectly well. It housed Uncle Vince's medical equipment and wheelchair van. The woman's perfume cloud was so dense I could taste it, white shoulders mixed with brimstone. That evening, Uncle Vince watched me pace the kitchen like a caged tiger, while Sarah stress-cooked enough ziti to feed a regiment. Enemies playing dirty pool, Uncle Vince observed, his combat-trained instincts activating. Question is, why is she specifically targeting you? His words struck like lightning. This wasn't random. This was personal. Plot twist number 1. The following morning revealed the answer when 4 Blackwood masonry trucks parked brazenly on our street, their commercial logos larger than billboards, completely immune to HOA penalties. Thomas Blackwood, Margaret's husband, my biggest competitor who'd mysteriously secured every municipal contract I'd bid on recently. The pieces assembled like ammunition in a chamber. She was weaponizing HOA rules to eliminate his competition. I spent 8 days constructing an ironclad case, time-stamped photographs, GPS coordinates, sufficient evidence to bury them both. Even captured Thomas personally directing crews while parked in emergency vehicle zones. The hypocrisy burned worse than molten concrete in summer heat. The subsequent HOA meeting became my battlefield. I entered that beige community center. It smelled like despair and instant coffee, with a phone full of evidence and a backbone full of Nonna Maria's DNA. Margaret presided from her elevated throne, surrounded by her wine club board members who appeared they'd rather be anywhere else. I motioned to address selective enforcement of vehicle regulations, I announced, commandeering the projector before anyone could intervene. The room gasped as images flooded the screen. Blackwood trucks violating every code Margaret had cited, me for dates and timestamps blazing like accusations. Margaret's face cycled through 50 shades of fury, her composure cracking like discount cosmetics. Those are temporary work situations, she sputtered, voice climbing octaves. Your eyesore is permanent. The board voted 4-1 to uphold my penalties, but their expressions screamed what their voices wouldn't. They knew this was wrong. They were simply too terrified of their queen to rebel. Plot twist number 2. My real ammunition came from Rose Patterson, 84 pounds of pure rebellion wrapped in a grandmother's disguise. She intercepted me in the parking lot, pressing a manila envelope into my hands like we were operatives exchanging secrets. Your grandmother was my dearest friend, she whispered, lavender perfume masking the scent of revolution. She knew this. Day would arrive. Article 18. Dear, read it tonight. Her arthritis-gnarled fingers squeezed mine with surprising strength. Maria always said, the best defense is possessing superior documentation than your enemies. The yellowed documents revealed Nonna's brilliance, a grandfather clause protecting all pre-existing property uses from future HOA restrictions. Our property had operated Maria's landscaping business since 1975, making it mixed-use commercial, rendering my truck untouchable, making Margaret's fines worthless paper. Legal knowledge nugget. Pre-existing use rights supersede new HOA regulations. Always demand original founding documents because your property's history is your strongest legal shield. One sentence can save you thousands. I posted Article 18 on my truck window, surrounded by photographs of Nonna Maria operating her business, including one where she's giving the camera a magnificent Italian salute. When Margaret's Lexus crept past that morning, I watched her face contort behind the tinted glass, her mouth moving in what I'm certain weren't prayers. She'd lost round one, but the way her hands gripped that steering wheel told me everything. This suburban dictator was about to go nuclear. He handed me his card with personal cell number written on back. When you nail her, and you will, call me. I'll testify about the false reports. People like her make our job harder, hurt real victims. As he left, he paused at the door. Your uncle reminds me of my sergeant. Take care of him and take her down. The pieces were aligning like dominoes waiting to fall. Financial fraud, mail theft, false reports, stalking, civil rights violations. Margaret had built an empire of crimes, thinking her HOA throne made her untouchable. She didn't know about our growing alliance, our documented evidence, or that her precious annual HOA gala was 4 weeks away. The same gala where she courted real estate clients, where she played queen to potential buyers, where her reputation mattered more than her fake designer bags. Rose had secured us 4 invitations, and I had contractor friends who specialized in audio-visual installations. Margaret loved the spotlight. We were about to make sure she got one she'd never forget. The breakthrough came at 2:30 a.m. on a sleepless Thursday while I was digging through HOA documents like a detective possessed, buried in subsection 52D of our insurance policies. The kind of mind-numbing legalese designed to prevent anyone from reading it. I found the golden bullet that would end Margaret's reign. My hands actually shook as I read it 4 times to make sure I wasn't dreaming. According to the HOA's own automotive coverage policy, any vehicle on HOA common property could be towed if it met 3 criteria: blocking emergency access, unregistered or uninsured, or posing a safety hazard. The kicker, Margaret's driveway, that concrete pad where her Lexus sat like a throne, wasn't actually her property. A surveyor's error in 2004 had placed her driveway 8 feet into HOA common area, a mistake no one had caught because who checks surveys after construction? Margaret had been illegally parking on community property for 18 years, while fining others for infractions that didn't even exist. I called Roberto at dawn, my best friend since high school, who now owned Roberto's Recovery, the most successful towing company in the county. "Hermano, you awake?" I asked. "For you, always. What's the target?" When I explained the situation, his laugh was pure joy. "The silver Lexus? The one whose owner called my truck visual pollution at the city council meeting? Oh, this is destiny. Brother. Everything by the book, legal as Sunday Mass." The beauty was in the simplicity. State law said vehicles with suspended registration on public property could be immediately impounded. HOA bylaws, the ones Margaret wrote herself in her power-drunk wisdom, stated the board president must enforce all regulations equally without exception. She'd created a legal bear trap and parked her own foot in it every single day. Her suspended license, expired registration, and illegal parking made her Lexus a towing company's dream score. But the revelation went deeper. That survey error meant Margaret had been collecting HOA violation fines while simultaneously violating HOA rules more egregiously than anyone. Every single fine she'd issued while parked illegally was potentially invalid. Every board meeting she'd conducted from her position of hypocrisy was grounds for lawsuit. Felt like an archaeologist who'd discovered a tomb full of legal gold. Uncle Vince listened to my explanation over morning coffee, his tactical mind immediately seeing the angles. "It's like she built a minefield, then forgot her own map," he mused. "Pride before the fall, son. Same in war, same in HOAs." Sarah, still on bed rest but sharp as ever, added the crucial insight. "The gala. She'll park there for sure. probably in a fire lane for her grand entrance. Maximum witnesses, maximum humiliation. The annual HOA gala was Margaret's coronation ceremony, where she held court for potential real estate clients and renewed her grip on power. 350 people would attend, including local media covering the community event. I spent the next week preparing legal documentation with the precision of a surgeon. Every form Roberto would need, every legal justification, every piece of evidence organized and copied. The law was beautiful in its clarity. We weren't just allowed to tow her car. We were technically obligated to once we knew about the violations. As HOA members aware of illegal activity on common property, failing to act made us complicit. Margaret's own rules demanded her destruction. The final piece fell into place when I discovered subsection 52D, paragraph 12. In cases of vehicles towed from common areas, the HOA board president is personally liable for all fees, storage costs, and associated legal expenses if said vehicle was parked with their knowledge or consent. Since Margaret couldn't claim ignorance of her own parking, she'd be personally on the hook for every penny. At Roberto's Recovery's premium rates for illegal parking impounds, $650 hook fee, $250 daily storage, plus administrative costs, her Lexus would generate bills that would make her mortgage look reasonable. Roberto and I met at his yard to plan the operation, surrounded by the mechanical poetry of tow trucks and the smell of diesel justice. "We do this clean," he said, patting his truck's hood. "Cameras rolling, paperwork perfect by the absolute letter of the law. When she screams lawsuit, I want to hand her the statute she wrote herself." We practiced the approach angles, the fastest, hookup method, the exact route to avoid any legal ambiguity. This wasn't revenge. This was law enforcement. The fact that it would happen at her gala in front of everyone she'd terrorized, in view of news cameras she'd invited herself, that was just karma with excellent timing. Our revolution started in my garage, which reeked of motor oil and righteous fury. Within a week, it became the unofficial headquarters of the anti-Margaret resistance, complete with whiteboards, laptops, and enough coffee to fuel a small nation. The alliance grew faster than black mold in a negligent landlord's property. 15 households officially on board, with more joining daily once word spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Rose Patterson became our inside woman, maintaining her facade of harmless old lady while gathering intelligence like a geriatric. James Bond. "Margaret trusts me because I bring her zucchini bread," she explained, eyes twinkling with mischief. "She has no idea I've been recording every confession she makes about dealing with problem neighbors." Jay Chen, our forensic accountant by day, and HOA victim by night, had spent 4 weeks analyzing financial records with the dedication of someone who'd been fined $600 for having the wrong shade of tan mailbox. The Henderson family, a tech-savvy couple Margaret had harassed for their solar panels, handled our digital evidence compilation, creating a secure cloud server they nicknamed Margaret Leaks. The real coup was Mike Sullivan, our mailman for 18 years who'd watched Margaret rifle through mail slots like a raccoon with a real estate license. "Federal postal inspectors have been wanting a case like this," he told me over beer in my garage. "Mail theft by an HOA official, that's Christmas morning for those guys. I've been documenting every complaint, keeping photos of tampered boxes. Your girl's looking at federal time." He'd already submitted reports, just waiting for our signal to escalate. My lawyer, Gary Kim, who'd done free consultation after Margaret tried to fine him for his ethnically inappropriate koi pond, laid out our legal strategy with the precision of a military campaign. We filed the HOA records request first, forced them to produce everything. Then we hit them with the survey discrepancy, the financial audit demand, and the compilation of false reports to agencies. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, all perfectly legal. He'd already drafted 20 different motions, each one a torpedo, aimed at Margaret's hull. The best part, HOA bylaws required them to pay legal fees for any member request that uncovered board malfeasance. The technical preparation consumed our nights. We installed hidden cameras at strategic points, all on private property, all perfectly legal, creating a surveillance network that would make casinos jealous. The Henderson family wrote a program that synced all footage to timestamps, creating an indisputable record of Margaret's movements. Roberto contributed GPS trackers for the tow trucks, ensuring perfect documentation of the route from gala to impound. If she claims we damaged her car or took anything, we'll have video from 18 angles proving otherwise, he explained, installing his 8th dash cam. Uncle Vince turned our operation into a military exercise, complete with code names and synchronized watches. He'd rallied 6 other veterans from the VA center, all of whom had stories about Margaret's harassment. Operation Freedom Tow, he called it, sketching attack plans like he was back in tactical ops. His contribution was brilliant in its simplicity. A phone tree that could mobilize 50 witnesses within 12 minutes. When that Lexus gets hooked, I want everyone with a camera phone recording. Multiple angles. Undeniable evidence. Sarah, despite bed rest orders, became our intelligence analyst. "Look at this pattern," she said, laptop balanced on her pregnant belly, showing charts that looked like something from FBI headquarters. Margaret's violations cluster around the 1st and 15th paydays. She's using fines as income supplements. She'd identified 28 households hit with suspicious fines right before Margaret's mortgage payments were due. It's a shakedown racket disguised as community standards. Her teacher's instinct for organization had created a database that would make prosecutors weep with joy. Wounded Margarets don't retreat, they reload. And my driveway was about to become her preferred target. Margaret's retaliation started at 5:52 a.m. on a Monday, because apparently malice sets multiple alarms. Her silver Lexus sat diagonally across my driveway like a $75,000 barricade, while she visited the neighbor whose house was darker than her soul. My 6:45 appointment with the Henderson family, a $38,000 kitchen renovation that would cover Uncle Vince's medical expenses, was approaching while I waited for police who arrived at 6:40, just in time to watch Margaret materialize with Academy Award timing. "Oh, David, I had no idea you needed to depart. Patricia had a plumbing crisis." Patricia had been in Arizona for 4 weeks. I knew because I'd been collecting her mail, unlike some people who apparently steamed it open for entertainment. The missed appointment went to Blackwood Masonry, shocking absolutely nobody, but Margaret was just beginning. Tuesday, she blocked my concrete delivery, costing me $650 in restocking fees. Wednesday, she trapped Uncle Vince's medical transport for 42 minutes, the driver honking while she accidentally abandoned her car during urgent HOA business. Thursday nearly destroyed me. Sarah, 10 months pregnant, stuck behind Margaret's Lexus, while experiencing contractions that proved to be false labor induced by pure rage. Each time Margaret moved moments before legal consequences, and I discovered why Thursday evening, a police scanner app glowing on her phone between Pinterest and Wine Moms United. The woman had weaponized suburban technology against us. Friday evening changed everything. Uncle Vince held up our utility bill with the precision of examining enemy intelligence. The envelope wrinkled and smudged. "Someone's reading our mail," he announced. "See the adhesive steamed and reglued. In Nam, we'd have court-martialed spies. For technique this sloppy." That's when the pattern struck me like a sledgehammer. Margaret knew our appointments, our schedules, our entire lives because she was intercepting our mail. Mail theft was a federal felony, 5 years in prison, but proving it required more than Uncle Vince's forensic analysis. The weekend transformed me into a suburban spy. Amazon delivered a magnetic GPS tracker that could survive anything short of nuclear war. I installed a hidden camera disguised as a garden light, HOA approved ironically, aimed at our mailbox. The trap, a fake appointment letter from Henderson Medical Group for Tuesday at 2:15 p.m., placed tantalizingly in the mailbox like bait for a very entitled rat. Monday's footage was beautiful. Margaret in her $350 yoga ensemble, photographing our mail at 6:15 a.m. before pocketing the medical decoy entirely. Tuesday at 2 p.m., her Lexus blocked my driveway with the reliability of atomic decay. I let her marinate in her smugness for 25 minutes before approaching with my phone recording. "I need to leave for my appointment," I said sweetly. Her smirk could have soured milk. "What appointment?" I held up an identical envelope. The Henderson Medical Group appointment, same as the one that disappeared from my mailbox yesterday. The one currently sitting on your passenger seat between the Starbucks cups and HOA violation forms. Watching her face collapse was better than championship boxing. While she scrambled for excuses, I bent to attach my note to her bumper, actually the GPS tracker clicking home with the satisfaction of a loaded weapon. Drive safely, Margaret. Expired tags are costly, aren't they? Her registration sticker was 8 months out of date, which I'd noticed while she was busy violating federal law. She peeled out like a teenager caught smoking, leaving rubber and the stench of burnt entitlement. That tracker became my window into Margaret's criminal habits. Over the following week, it showed her Lexus regularly in handicapped spaces, fire lanes, and at the DMV, where public records revealed her license was suspended from last year's DUI. The woman citing us for violations was driving illegally everywhere, like a health inspector with food poisoning. During one of her driveway blocking episodes while she was terrorizing the Chen family about their bamboo plants, I glimpsed inside her car. The glove compartment overflowed with tickets, court summons, and final notices. Empty wine bottles hid under designer bags, and the entire interior reeked of Pinot Grigio and poor decisions. This wasn't just hypocrisy. This was ammunition. Every citation she'd written while driving on a suspended license was legally invalid. Every HOA fine she'd issued while committing crimes was grounds for a lawsuit. I'd been playing defense against someone who didn't even have a legal right to be on the field. The war was shifting, and Margaret didn't know it yet. She thought she was fighting a contractor with a truck. She was actually fighting someone who'd just discovered her glass house was built on quicksand, and I was about to start throwing boulders. Margaret's nuclear option detonated on a Tuesday morning when a white van marked Adult Protective Services pulled into my driveway. The social worker, a weary-looking woman clutching a clipboard like a life preserver, explained someone had reported serious concerns about an elderly veteran being neglected in hazardous conditions. Anonymous tip, naturally, but I could smell Margaret's perfume on this attack from across the street, where she pretended to water already dead geraniums while watching our humiliation unfold. Uncle Vince handled the inspection with military composure until they reached his medication questions. Then something cracked. "My nephew takes better care of me than the VA ever did," he said, voice shaking, hands trembling, not from age but from fury mixed with flashback. "I didn't survive Saddam to be treated like a child by some—" He stopped, jaw clenched, as the social worker photographed his living space like a crime scene. That night, his PTSD nightmares returned for the first time in years. I heard him calling for his squad at 3:15 a.m., trapped in a desert that existed only in memory and Margaret's cruelty. 3 days later, Sarah called me from her classroom, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "David," someone reported, "me to Child Protective Services. They said I was recklessly endangering our baby by driving dangerously. They showed up at school, pulled me out of class in front of my students. My pregnant wife, who'd never received a speeding ticket in her life, was interrogated about her fitness as a mother, because Margaret had apparently followed her to work, photographing her going 29 in a 25 zone. The stress spiked Sarah's blood, pressure so dangerously her doctor ordered immediate bed rest. False labor struck again that night, and I spent 7 hours in the ER wondering if Margaret's vendetta would cost us our baby. That's when I discovered Margaret's mistake. She'd gotten cocky, sloppy. Hospital security pulled me aside and showed me footage from their parking structure. There was Margaret's Lexus following Sarah's car for 25 minutes, lurking like a designer-clad stalker. The security chief, a former Marine who'd bonded with Uncle Vince during visits, handed me a DVD copy. "Might want to file a restraining order," he suggested. "This looks like harassment to me, but I had bigger plans than restraining orders. I had research to conduct. My contractor network runs deep in this city. We build structures. We solve problems. We know everyone's business." 4 phone calls revealed Margaret's history. 6 different addresses in 12 years, always departing after neighborhood disputes. Tommy from Elite Plumbing knew her from Boulder. She got the HOA president arrested for embezzlement, then assumed control. 2 years later, she was gone and $35,000 was missing from the HOA account. Mike, the electrician, had worse. Willowbrook subdivision. She reported 8 families to CPS before someone proved she was filing false reports. Fled before charges were filed. The pattern was clear as a blueprint. Margaret was a serial neighborhood terrorist. But the real gold came from Rose during our weekly intelligence exchange in the produce aisle. "Did you know our Margaret owes the HOA $52,000? She whispered over the bananas. Presidential exemption, she calls it. Hasn't paid dues in 9 years while fining everyone else for being a day late. Rose's nephew worked at the title company and had pulled records showing Margaret's house carried 4 liens and a pending foreclosure notice. The real estate agent, lecturing us about property values, was drowning in debt, using HOA funds as her personal piggy bank. That night, our kitchen became a war room. Uncle Vince, energized by righteous fury, had connected with other victims through the VA center. Turns out Margaret had targeted 4 other veteran families. Sarah, from her Bedrest Command Center, created a Facebook group that gained 65 members in 3 hours. Victims of Margaret became a support group and intelligence network. The Chen family shared how she'd reported their Buddhist decorations as gang symbols. The Henderson family revealed she'd called the health department on their daughter's lemonade stand. Even the quiet Filipino family posted videos of Margaret screaming about their ethnic cooking odors. Every story painted the same picture. A bigot, with a badge abusing power to torment anyone different. The CPS investigator returned that week, and I was ready. His name was Jim Rodriguez, Vietnam vet with eyes that had seen too much bureaucratic cruelty. When he saw Uncle Vince's service medals and heard about the APS harassment, something shifted in his face. "I've seen this pattern before," he said, quietly. "Serial false reporters targeting military families, minorities, anyone vulnerable. It's predatory." The printer in my garage ran hot enough to warm the room, churning out evidence packets that would paper the walls of a courtroom. Financial irregularities highlighting $203,000 in miscellaneous expenses that coincidentally matched Margaret's. Credit card statements. Time-stamped photos of her Lexus in handicapped spots at 15 different locations. Transcripts of her recorded HOA meetings where she'd admitted to targeting certain elements in the neighborhood. Each packet was a prosecutorial wet dream bound in clear covers. 4 nights before the gala, we held our final strategy meeting. 51 people crammed into my garage, sharing stories that would horrify anyone who believed in basic decency. The Filipino family she'd reported for suspicious gatherings, family dinners. The black veteran she'd called the cops on for loitering, checking his own mail. The elderly Jewish couple fined for their mezuzah, unapproved door modification. Every story strengthened our resolve. This wasn't just about my family anymore. This was about everyone who'd ever been bulldozed by a petty tyrant with a clipboard. "Remember," I addressed the group, "everything we do is legal, documented, and justified. We're not vigilantes. We're citizens enforcing our own bylaws when our president won't. When that tow truck arrives, I want calm, legal, peaceful observation. Let Margaret be the one who loses control. And she will." The room buzzed with anticipation, like electricity before lightning. Everyone knew their role, their position, their timing. We'd turned Margaret's weapon against her. Organization, documentation, and ruthless adherence to rules. The gala was in 96 hours. The trap was set with Swiss watch precision. Margaret thought she was attending her annual coronation. Instead, she'd be the star of her own public execution, directed by the people she'd terrorized, produced by the laws she'd written, and broadcast to everyone who mattered. Roberto had already cleared his schedule, his best driver on standby, the truck polished until it gleamed like justice itself. We were ready. Margaret just didn't know it yet. Margaret must have sensed danger the way animals smell earthquakes, because 4 days before the gala, she launched a desperation offensive that would have impressed Napoleon. It started when I found my truck on blocks, all 4 tires slashed with surgical precision. The security footage showed a figure in black at 3:15 a.m., but conveniently, spray paint had covered 4 of my 5 cameras just minutes before. The 5th camera, hidden in a birdhouse Sarah made at summer camp 20 years ago, captured everything, in crystal clarity, including Margaret's distinctive French manicure gripping the knife. "She's escalating," Uncle Vince observed, examining the damage like a crime scene investigator. "Seen this in combat. When rats get cornered, they attack. The replacement tires cost $1,400, but the insurance claim would be interesting. How do you explain your HOA president commits felony vandalism?" Then came the call from my biggest client. "David, I'm sorry, but we're going with another contractor. Someone sent us disturbing information about your business practices." The disturbing information was an anonymous blog called The Truth About Romano Construction, complete with photoshopped images suggesting code violations and safety hazards that didn't exist. The blog was hosted on the HOA's official website server, a detail Margaret apparently forgot while committing cyber defamation. The Henderson family traced the IP address to HOA board meetings, time-stamped to when Margaret would have been present. She'd literally defamed me using HOA resources during official meetings, adding wire fraud to her growing collection of felonies. But the real shock came when 6 more clients called within 3 days, all canceling contracts worth over $180,000 total. She was trying to bankrupt me before the gala. Roberto called Wednesday night, voice tight with controlled anger. "Someone offered me $6,000 to refuse any tow calls from Oakwood Heights this weekend. Cash, untraceable, very professional." He'd recorded the entire conversation on his phone, including the part where the caller mentioned consequences if he didn't comply. Thing is, Hermano, they called from the HOA office line. Caller ID doesn't lie. We added witness tampering and bribery to Margaret's rap sheet, which was starting to look like a criminal justice textbook. Thursday brought the cruelest blow yet. Sarah called me sobbing from the elementary school. "David, someone called CPS again. They pulled both kids out of class, interrogated them about our home life, asked if Mommy and Daddy ever hurt them, if they felt safe, if there were drugs in the house. Our babies are terrified." The investigator was apologetic but thorough. The report had alleged specific details that required investigation. I raced to the school to find my 9-year-old son crying, asking why the lady wanted to know if Daddy hit Mommy. My daughter, only 7, kept repeating that she promised we were nice parents. That's when something snapped in me. But it was a cold snap, the kind that creates diamonds from coal. I called Jim Rodriguez, the CPS investigator who'd given me his card. "It's happening again," I said simply. "Same false reporter?" he asked, voice hardening. "Same pattern, same timing, right before a major HOA event where we're planning to expose financial crimes." There was a pause then. "File a police report immediately. I'll add my statement about the pattern of false reports. This is witness intimidation using state resources. The DA takes that very seriously." He was right. Margaret had crossed from civil harassment into criminal territory. The police detective who took our report was an HOA victim himself. "Let me guess," he said, looking at our pile of evidence. "The president runs it like a personal kingdom. Selective enforcement targets anyone who questions them. His own HOA had sued him for having the wrong species of grass. He took extra care documenting everything, especially the cybercrimes. Blog posts during HOA meetings using HOA servers. That's embezzlement of services and wire fraud. Federal prosecutors love wire fraud. It's their bread and butter. But Margaret saved her masterstroke for Friday morning, 28 hours before the gala. I was reviewing final preparations when Rose called, breathless with urgency. "Emergency, HOA board meeting in 1 hour. Margaret's trying to pass new bylaws. She wants to ban recording devices at all HOA events, prohibit members from hiring tow services without board approval, and make it illegal to gather in groups larger than 5 on HOA property." She was literally trying to legislate away our entire plan, using her presidential powers to protect herself from consequences. The meeting was a circus of desperation. Margaret presided like a dictator sensing revolution, makeup slightly smeared, voice an octave too high. "These measures are necessary to protect our community from organized harassment," she stammered, clearly reading from notes. The 5 board members looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats as 45-plus homeowners packed the small room. When she called for immediate vote without discussion, violating Robert's rules, Dr. Chen stood up. "Point of order, Madam President. Bylaws require 35-day notice for any voting measure. Page 52, Section 4. Margaret's face cycled through red to purple. "I'm invoking emergency powers for community safety." "What emergency?" Rose asked innocently. "The gala tomorrow? That's been planned for months." The board voted down all three measures 4-1, with only Margaret supporting her own coup attempt. Even her wine club allies could smell the desperation The meeting dissolved into chaos. Margaret made one last announcement. "Anyone who disrupts tomorrow's gala will be prosecuted for trespassing." Gary Kim, our lawyer, stood with theatrical calm. "Actually, Margaret, the gala is a public HOA event. On common property, every dues-paying member has equal right to attend and document. Page 18, Section 9 of the bylaws. You wrote them yourself." She fled the meeting like her hair was on fire, but not before I saw something in her eyes that confirmed everything. Pure, undiluted fear. She knew we had something planned, but not what. The unknown was eating her alive. That night, our group chat buzzed with updates. Cameras charged, positions confirmed, witnesses ready. The news crew covering the community gala had been tipped about potential drama. Roberto's truck was polished and positioned 6 minutes away. Everything was set for Saturday night's show. Margaret had spent weeks throwing punches in the dark. Tomorrow we'd turn on the lights. Saturday morning broke with Margaret's final, most vicious assault, a full-scale character assassination that would have made Stalin proud. I woke to 19 missed calls and a text from my brother in Phoenix. Why? "Is there a blog saying you're under investigation for elder abuse?" The anonymous blog Oakwood Heights Truth had gone viral overnight, featuring photos of my uncle looking frail, twisted captions suggesting neglect, and fabricated testimonials from concerned neighbors about the dangerous conditions in our home. The kicker was a photoshopped image of Uncle Vince fallen on the floor, created from a legitimate photo where he was doing physical therapy exercises. But Margaret had made a fatal error in her rage. She'd included specific medical information about Uncle Vince's prescriptions that only someone who'd illegally accessed his mail would know. The blog post literally contained evidence of federal crimes while trying to frame me for state ones. My phone rang nonstop as clients, friends, and relatives saw the viral lies. Sarah's blood pressure spiked so high, her doctor threatened immediate hospitalization. "She's trying to induce labor before tonight," Sarah gasped between contractions. "She knows we won't leave if I'm in the hospital." By noon, the situation escalated beyond even Margaret's usual evil. The doorbell rang to reveal 2 police officers, responding to a welfare check on my uncle. Behind them, I could see Margaret's Lexus parked across the street, her silhouette visible behind tinted windows like a vulture waiting for carrion. "We received reports of screaming and sounds of violence," the younger officer said, hand resting on his weapon. Uncle Vince wheeled himself to the door with military precision. "Officers, I'm Vincent Romano, retired Staff Sergeant, Purple Heart. Recipient, the only violence here is against the truth." What happened next was pure karma. The older cop studied Uncle Vince's face, then broke into a grin. "Vinny, Vincent Romano. Holy hell, you saved my cousin's life in '91. Bobby Patterson from the 82nd Airborne." They embraced like long-lost brothers while Margaret watched her false report literally turn into a reunion. Officer Patterson took detailed notes about the false report, muttering about people who waste police resources while real crimes happen. As they left, he handed me his card. "When you nail whoever's doing this, call me. False reports killed my partner's response time to a real domestic. This garbage costs lives." The afternoon brought intelligence from an unexpected source. Thomas, Blackwood, Margaret's husband, standing at my door looking like a man who'd discovered his wife was a serial killer, which, financially speaking, wasn't far off. "I'm done covering for her," he said, handing me a thumb drive. "She's destroyed our finances, our reputation, our marriage. That drive has everything. HOA funds she stole, fake receipts, the private investigator reports on neighbors, even recordings of her planning false CPS reports. His hands shook as he spoke. She promised it was just about protecting property values. I didn't know. I didn't know she was evil. The thumb drive was a prosecutor's treasure chest. Screenshots of HOA bank accounts showing transfers to Margaret's, personal shopping sprees, emails planning coordinated harassment campaigns. Most damning, a spreadsheet tracking which neighbors to target based on race, religion, and military status, with notes like, Hispanics bring property values down, and too many Asians on Maple Street. She documented her own hate crimes with the efficiency of a Nazi accountant. But the crown jewel was an audio file, Margaret drunk at a wine club meeting, bragging about running out the undesirables and making Oakwood Heights pure again. Dr. Chen called an emergency pre-gala meeting at 4:30 p.m. 53 homeowners crammed into my garage, which now smelled like justice and determination. I've completed the forensic audit, he announced, projecting spreadsheets that made everyone gasp. Margaret Sullivan Blackwood has embezzled $263,000 over 9 years. But here's the beautiful part. She was sloppy. Every transaction is traceable, documented, indisputable. She used HOA credit cards for personal purchases, then filed false expense reports. That's wire fraud, tax evasion, and embezzlement, federal crimes with mandatory minimums. The room erupted in controlled fury. The Filipino family revealed Margaret had cost them $35,000 in legal fees fighting bogus violations. The black veteran showed medical bills from stress-induced heart problems. The Jewish couple calculated $55,000 in lost property value from her harassment campaign. Together, we represented over $450,000 in damages, not counting the emotional destruction. Gary Kim stood with the gravity of a judge pronouncing sentence. Tonight, we're not just towing a car. We're serving justice. Every camera, every witness, every document matters. She's going to prison, but first, she's going to be exposed. As the meeting ended, Uncle Vince rolled up to me, eyes bright with military precision. Logistics update. Weather's perfect, no rain to interfere with cameras. Mike confirmed 4 news crews attending. Roberto's in position with backup truck in case she tries to flee in another vehicle. Rose is inside the venue, says Margaret's planning to arrive at 7:50 for maximum entrance drama. He handed me a checklist with military efficiency. Oh, and, son, your grandmother would be proud. Maria always said the best revenge is served legally with multiple witnesses. The sun was setting on Margaret's reign of terror. In 3 hours, she'd make her grand entrance to the gala in her silver Lexus, expecting worship and wine. Instead, she'd find 53 homeowners with cameras, a tow truck with her name on it, and enough legal documentation to wallpaper a federal prison. The blog posts, false reports, and intimidation tactics had been her extinction burst, the desperate flailing of a dictator who sensed the revolution coming. Tonight, the revolution would be televised, uploaded, and shared with every HOA in America as a warning. You can only push good people so far before they push back with the Constitution, criminal codes, and a legally operated tow truck. Margaret thought she was untouchable. In 2 hours, she'd learned the difference between untouchable and untouchable in prison. The Oakwood Heights annual gala kicked off at 7:15 p.m. in the community center, transformed with fairy lights and ivory tablecloths into Margaret's personal throne room. 4 news crews mingled with 350 residents, there to cover what they thought was a fluff piece about community togetherness. They had no idea they were about to witness the most explosive HOA meeting in internet history. I stood near the entrance, with Uncle Vince, both of us in our best suits, watching Rose work the room like a spy in pearls, whispering updates through our group text. At 7:48, Margaret's silver Lexus appeared like a shark fin cutting through dark water. She'd chosen the fire lane directly in front of the main entrance, maximum visibility for her grand entrance, maximum illegality for our purposes. The universe gifted us perfection when she spent 4 full minutes adjusting her makeup in the mirror, giving everyone time to position cameras. Through the tinted glass, we could see her practicing her smile, unaware that 53 phones were already recording her final crime. She emerged from the Lexus like she was walking a red carpet, wearing a $4,500 sequined dress that sparkled like her delusions of grandeur. The smell of her perfume arrived 6 seconds before she did. Tonight she'd apparently bathed in white shoulders mixed with hubris. She swept past the "No Parking Fire Lane" sign like it was a red carpet marker, her heels clicking concrete in a rhythm that screamed, "I own this place." Behind her, the Lexus sat illegally parked, expired registration sticker visible, one tire actually touching the yellow fire lane paint. A detail Roberto would later call poetic justice. Inside, she worked. The room with realtor precision, air-kissing potential clients and accepting compliments like a queen receiving tribute. The news cameras captured her holding court, completely oblivious to the revolution brewing in the parking lot. At 8:20, Dr. Chen took the microphone for the evening's special presentation. Margaret preened in the front row, expecting praise. Instead, the projection screen lit up with HOA financial records that made the crowd gasp like they were watching a horror movie. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dr. Chen announced with prosecutor calm, "I present 9 years of systematic embezzlement, documenting $263,000 in stolen HOA funds." The screen showed receipts. Margaret's Hawaii trips charged as board retreats, her Lexus payments as community vehicle maintenance, her wine collection as meeting refreshments. The crowd murmured, then rumbled, then erupted as each slide revealed deeper corruption. Margaret's face went from smug to shocked to furious, her sequins trembling with rage. "This is illegal," she shrieked, jumping up so fast her wine glass shattered on the floor. "You can't access those records without board approval." Gary Kim stood smoothly, holding up documents. "Actually, we can. Page 78 of the bylaws you wrote states any 6 members can demand emergency financial review if fraud is suspected. We have 53 signatures." The news cameras swiveled between Margaret and the screen like they were filming a tennis match in hell. That's when Rose's text hit our phones. "Showtime." Through the windows, Roberto's flatbed tow truck appeared like a chariot of justice, emergency lights painting the building red and blue. The driver, Roberto's best operator, an ex-Marine named Carlos, executed the approach with surgical precision. The crowd rushed to the windows, phones raised. As Carlos positioned the truck, Margaret stood frozen, her brain struggling to process the reality unfolding outside. "That's my car," she screamed, shoving through the crowd in her designer heels. "You can't do this. I'm the president." She burst through the doors to find Carlos calmly attaching the wheel lift, every movement deliberate and legal. Roberto stood nearby with a clipboard documenting everything. "Ma'am, this vehicle is illegally parked in a fire lane on HOA common property with expired registration. Per HOA bylaws, Section 52D and State Statute 42-4-1208, we are authorized to impound." The news crews followed the drama outside, cameras capturing Margaret's meltdown in high definition. She grabbed Carlos's arm, assault on camera. She kicked the tow truck, property damage on camera. She screamed obscenities that would end any real estate career, broadcast quality audio. "I know people," she shrieked. "I'll have your business destroyed. You wetbacks don't know who you're messing with." The racial slur hung in the air like a fart in church. 350 people heard it. 4 news crews recorded it. The Hispanic reporter from Channel 9 turned to her cameraman. "Tell me you got that." He nodded, zooming in on Margaret's face as she realized what she'd just done. Her real estate career ended in that moment, captured in 4K clarity, but the universe saved the best for last. As Carlos finished securing the Lexus, a white sedan with official plates pulled up. 3 figures emerged, a sheriff's deputy, and 2 people in suits holding federal credentials. The postal inspector Mike had promised, arriving with timing, that suggested divine intervention. "Margaret Sullivan Blackwood," the deputy called out. "We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of mail theft, wire fraud, and making false reports to Child Protective Services." The crowd gasped in unison, the sound of 350 people simultaneously achieving catharsis. Margaret tried to run in her sequined dress and heels, making it exactly 5 steps before tripping on her own hubris and face-planting into the decorative Bushes she'd fined the Henderson family for trimming incorrectly. The deputy helped her up, handcuffs glinting in the gala lights. "You have the right to remain silent," he began, as every phone streamed the Miranda rights to Facebook Live. "David," she screamed, mascara streaming down her face like toxic rivers. "You did this, you destroyed everything." I stepped forward, Uncle Vince rolling beside me, and delivered the line I'd practiced for weeks. "No, Margaret, you did this. We just made sure everyone saw it." The crowd erupted in applause that drowned out her continued shrieking. As the deputy guided her into the patrol car, her husband Thomas emerged from the crowd with a process server. "Margaret, you're being served," he announced, handing divorce papers through the window. "And before you ask, yes, I'm keeping the house." Check. The prenup clause about criminal convictions. The look on her face, captured by 19 different angles, was Renaissance art painted in real-time karma. The Lexus disappeared on Roberto's flatbed just as Margaret vanished into the patrol car, two symbols of false power removed simultaneously. The TR news crews scrambled for interviews, but the story was already writing itself. HOA president arrested at own gala after towing incident exposes years of crimes. Within 2 hours, Twarn Towden style was trending nationally. The revolution wasn't just televised, it went viral, reaching 2.8 million views before midnight. Justice had been served with a side of public humiliation, garnished with federal charges and live-streamed for the world to witness. The dictator had fallen, and Oakwood Heights was finally free. The emergency HOA election happened right there in the community center, democracy rising from the ashes of Margaret's empire, while the news crews kept rolling. Rose Patterson won by acclamation, not a single dissenting vote, and her first act as president was to motion for reversal of all fines issued in the past 9 years pending review. The motion passed unanimously. Just like that, $450,000 in predatory fines evaporated, and you could actually hear people crying with relief. Within a week, the story exploded beyond our wildest dreams. The footage of Margaret's arrest hit 3.1 million views, spawning 1,000 memes and serving as a warning to HOA tyrants nationwide. The postal inspector's investigation revealed Margaret had committed mail theft across 4 states, following her trail of destroyed neighborhoods. The federal prosecutor, a woman who'd clearly waited her whole career for a case this satisfying, charged Margaret with 52 counts ranging from wire fraud to civil rights violations. The plea deal saved taxpayers a trial, 3 years federal prison, 4 years probation, and $350,000 in restitution. She'd also been permanently banned from serving on any HOA board, nonprofit, or community organization, the legal equivalent of taking away Voldemort's wand. The transformation of Oakwood Heights felt like watching a garden bloom after killing the weeds. Under Rose's leadership, we instituted radical transparency, all financial records posted online, monthly town halls, and every fine requiring majority resident vote. The Filipino family planted a gorgeous cultural garden where Margaret used to park illegally. The Chen family hosted Lunar New Year celebrations that lit up the whole neighborhood. Uncle Vince started a veteran support group that met weekly in the community center, no longer fearing harassment for unauthorized gatherings. My business didn't just recover, it exploded. Turns out being the guy who took down a corrupt HOA president was better marketing than any billboard. Clients called specifically requesting the contractor who fought Margaret, and my calendar booked solid for 20 months. Sarah safely delivered our daughter Isabella. Yes, we named her after our courage. She entered the world with perfect timing. 3 weeks after Margaret entered federal custody, even Thomas Blackwood became a client, hiring me to renovate the house he'd won in the divorce. "Least I can do," he said, writing the check. "Plus, I'm dating Dr. Chen's sister now. Life's funny that way." The ripple effects spread beyond Oakwood Heights. Our story inspired 4 other neighborhoods to investigate their HOAs, uncovering similar corruption. A state legislator who lived 3 streets over drafted Margaret's law, requiring HOA financial transparency and limiting presidential power. I testified at the state capitol, sharing our story to a room of lawmakers who, actually listened. The bill passed 89-6, proving that sometimes fighting one bully can protect thousands of future victims. 8 months later, I received a letter that made everything worthwhile. It was from Margaret's daughter, estranged for years after her mother had reported her Korean boyfriend to ICE. "Thank you," she wrote. "My mother's arrest freed our whole family from her reign of terror. I'm in law school now, studying housing discrimination law. The HOA scholarship helped pay tuition. Ironic, right? We'd established the Maria Romano Memorial Scholarship using recovered HOA funds, specifically for students fighting housing discrimination. Margaret's stolen money now funded lawyers who'd prevent future Margarets. Poetic justice at its finest." 2 years after the arrest, Oakwood Heights threw its first annual Freedom from Tyranny Festival. The smell of barbecue replaced the stench of fear. Children played in bounce houses where Margaret's Lexus once blocked driveways. And neighbors actually talked to each other without checking for violations. Uncle Vince manned the grill, regaling everyone with war stories and HOA battle tales. Rose, our 85-year-old president, worked the crowd like a beloved grandmother, which she'd become to half the neighborhood. The festival featured a special guest, Jim Rodriguez, the CPS investigator who'd helped expose Margaret's false reports. He presented a workshop on recognizing harassment disguised as concern, empowering families to fight back against weaponized bureaucracy. "What happened here," he told the crowd, "should be taught in every civics class. You proved that ordinary citizens can stand up to corruption and win." I found Roberto by the beer tent, his tow truck parked nearby with a sign, "The truck that towed tyranny. Photos $5, benefits Veteran Center." We'd raised $3,500 by afternoon. "Best tow of my career," he grinned, clinking beers. "Though I hear Margaret's working at a mall kiosk now selling phone cases. Tried to cite a customer for having the wrong brand." We laughed, but it was tinged with pity. Some people never learn. As sunset painted the sky, I stood with Sarah and our kids watching our neighbors celebrate freedom from fear. Uncle Vince rolled up, baby Isabella on his lap, both wearing matching HOA survivor t-shirts Rose had made. "You know," he said, surveying the scene, "your grandmother would have loved this. Maria always said the best revenge against bullies is a life well lived in spite of them." He was right. We'd won more than a battle against a corrupt HOA president. We'd built a community that looked out for each other, that celebrated differences instead of fighting them, that understood the true meaning of home values, had nothing to do with property prices and everything to do with human dignity. "Hey everyone," I called out, raising my beer. "Got a horror story about your HOA? Drop it in the comments. The worst one gets featured in next week's video. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, because next time we're exposing the racist HOA that tried to ban vegetable gardens. You won't believe how that one ends." The crowd cheered, phones already typing their own tales of suburban tyranny. Because here's the truth I learned fighting Margaret. Your home is your castle, but knowledge is your sword and shield. Every bylaw she wrote to oppress us became the weapon we used to defeat her. Every document she falsified became evidence. Every neighbor she terrorized became a witness. In the end, the very rules she worshipped became the chains that dragged her to federal prison. And that, my friends, is how you make a Margaret's car and career disappear for good. Thank you for tuning in to HOA Chronicles, where neighbors stand up against HOA tyrants and karma comes knocking. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more HOA tales and real-life neighborhood drama each week.